Hey, honey,
Yes, Barry?
let's get out of here.
Where are we going?
Where do we always go?
Fascina el viento, este ritmo de palmas, sin ti naturaleza, hasta encontrar la playa. Por eso grito al mundo, yo soy de Puerto Vallarta. Samba de Puerto Vallarta, noche de arrullo en el mar. Samba de Puerto Vallarta.
Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to this episode of the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show. I'm your host, Barry Kessler, and I'm just so happy to be introducing you to my favorite vacation destination in the entire world. Maybe it's even yours, and that's Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. That music you're listening to is performed by Alberto Perez, and Alberto is the owner of the La Palapa group of restaurants. That's the La Palapa, the El Dorado restaurant, and at night for dinner, the El Dorado transforms into the ever-so-romantic Vista Grill, with those dramatic views of the Los Muertos Pier all lit up at night in beautiful colors. Of course, at La Palapa, you can enjoy that same view of the Los Muertos Pier all day long for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, seated with your toes in the sand right at the water's edge. It's so romantic. It's just so Puerto Vallarta, my friends. Now, La Palapa, as many of you know, if you've listened to some of my podcasts, is one of the oldest restaurants here in Puerto Vallarta. It was built in 1957, and I'd like to tell you the whole story and give you a little bit of a history of the La Palapa, but I'm going to give Alberto Perez a chance to tell that story, and we're going to have him on the show in January, so stay tuned for that show. But for today, we have a pretty cool show. Let's find out what's happening in Puerto Vallarta this week first, the 5th day of September, 2017. I got an email from listener Cheryl. Cheryl lives in the Great White North up in Canada. And she writes, Barry, I just discovered your podcasts, and as a 7-month resident of PV, I find your topics so informative, it makes me homesick to come back to paradise. I hear that a lot, Cheryl. Friends have been going through the effort to become temporal or permanente residents, and I think it would be very helpful to do a podcast on this process. We have heard that there are changes going on at that office, and it's very confusing what we should do when we start our permanente visa in November. Maybe you could interview someone in immigration. Also, we love the Emiliano Zapata Market. Have you ever had breakfast there in the hallway? Eat with the friendly people, the friendly locals. Something everyone interested in the people and the culture of Mexico should experience. Yes, I have. Cheryl. I've eaten in that hallway. I've eaten in some of those little eateries there in the Emilio Zapata Market. Very cool. And I'll do a episode about walking through that market pretty soon. Anyway, she says, thanks for keeping us to date in the absence from Puerto Vallarta. I can't wait to return. So those are great suggestions. Actually, there are a couple of great suggestions, and your wish is my command, Cheryl. I have a show coming up in just a few weeks with one of my favorite abogados, lawyers in English, and Licencia Felix Zarate is a friend of mine, and he is a lawyer. He's been on the show before. He was with his lovely wife on an episode talking about buying and selling real estate. So I'll put his links in the show notes so you can remind yourself about the conversation we had with Rhonda and with Felix, several months back. But Felix has said that, sure, he'll talk all about immigration for us, and he'll talk about the process, and that's going to be a lot of fun. So stay tuned for that. I also am going to talk with Felix about ejidos, and we talked a little bit about ejidos when we talked about ziplining. And I'm going to talk with him about Ejido Land. Interesting fact, did you know that the North American Free Trade Agreement signed in 1992 opened the door to the sale of Ejido Land to foreigners? Well, it did. And with NAFTA being rewritten and renegotiated, you might start thinking that maybe something might be changed in that portion of the law. I mean, there is that opportunity, but we'll see. We'll ask Felix about that, and we'll ask him about more. So stay tuned for that episode. I got another email from listener Reggie, and Reggie writes, among other things, my first visit to Puerto Vallarta was in May of 1989. I was 20 years old, and I had only had 2 semesters of Spanish language classes in then my young lifetime. A college buddy and myself drove over 2,000 miles one way from Florence, Alabama to Puerto Vallarta. It took 4 days, and we only stayed a week, but oh my, how that changed my life. In 1990, I studied at the University of Guadalajara. I was able to visit Puerto Vallarta 3 times that year, and I traveled around Jalisco, including trips to Barra de Navidad, Ameca, and Tequila that summer. He also writes that he met JR on his last trip down. He writes, I met him for the first time on my trip last March, and thanks to your podcast, I wasn't so surprised to hear his British accent. My wife and I actually spent an evening visiting with him, which was really fun. I have many suggestions for your show, but reminiscing about my night with JR brings me to an interesting person that you may want to meet and interview, Isabel of Casa Isabel. My next suggestion is to meet and interview Jalisco's funniest human being, Gil. He's the author of 3 books about his life in Mexico, including Puerto Vallarta on 49 brain cells a day. Anyway, he and his wife own and operate Lucy's Cucugabana on Basilio Badillo. The store reopens in October 24th if you're unable to find him otherwise. Please let me know if you're able to make contact with Gil. He is a truly magnificent author. And, okay. So anyway, I told Reggie that those were both really great ideas. And actually, I had already been in touch with both Isabel and Gil. And as time allows, and if Gil will ever get back into town, I'll wrangle an interview from the funniest guy in Puerto Vallarta, and then I'll spend some time with the delightful Isabel from Casa Isabel. You can see Casa Isabel if you're standing on Los Muertos Beach. You look up onto the hill, and it's this big yellow house overlooking the south side and, of course, Los Muertos Beach. It has stunning views, and it's a cool property. And as a bonus to all you listeners out there, Reggie has also agreed to come on my show with his wife and tell us about his adventures and their adventures here in paradise. So stay tuned for that. That should be a lot of fun. Wouldn't that be fun to take that ride as a 20-year-old down to Puerto Vallarta? I can't wait to hear that story. I got another email from a listener named Sam who writes, Hola, I will be visiting PV for my second time in October. I travel solo and I like to eat loco taco cart or small family restaurant food. I would like to know your choices in Old Town. I have also read that a lot of places are closed in October. So, anyway, Sam, I made a list of my favorite restaurants and I sent them back to you, but your email keeps bouncing back to me. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's that ca.gov address that you have that's not allowing me to send something to you, Sam. So if you're listening, send me a real non-government email address and I'll get that information over to you pronto before you get your boots on the ground here in October. And as for you listeners, you're just going to have to wait for that list until next week because there's just too much to cover today. Now, it's been a while since I mentioned Uber in Puerto Vallarta, so I think that we need to go over some things. Once again, I've been seeing a lot of videos and news reports of taxi drivers in Vallarta acting badly. I'll post one of them in the show notes so you can see what I'm talking about. Here's the deal, you guys. It seems that almost every time I see incidents like these, in almost 90% of the times, it involves an Uber driver picking up a ride in front of a hotel or a resort or a restaurant. Look, guys, let's review how we keep safe and sound and not end up in a confrontation between your Uber driver and a taxi driver, or in some cases, multiple taxi drivers. In many cases, multiple taxi drivers. Remember, I'm telling you this not just for your sake and your safety, but for the safety of that poor Uber driver that you called, okay? Now, remember, Uber is not allowed to pick up rides at the airport. There's some of you out there, you know who you are, Debbie G. I'm talking to you, Debbie. Some of you guys are cheap, and you insist on adventuring out of the airport lobby with all your luggage out in the tropical heat after a long airplane ride from Canada to Mexico, and then you schlep all your stuff up the steep ramp and then across the pedestrian bridge and then down the other side of the street, and you negotiate a ride from one of the regular taxi drivers that sits there underneath the bridge at a lesser rate than the federal taxis out of the airport. Now, look, we can talk about that now if you want, but now let's not, okay? Maybe later. We'll talk about that later. But let's not summon an Uber driver at the airport, boys and girls. That airport area is crawling. It's literally crawling with taxi drivers. It's too risky. It's way too risky. It's just not the way to start your vacation in paradise, kids. Now, actually, my friend Debbie, the cheap Debbie, here's what she does. And she wrote me, this is funny. She says, Barry, I was just catching up on some episodes and then I heard you talking about the people that go over the bridge and you called me cheap. You called me cheap, right? And I'm all, yes, I called you cheap. But here's what she says. Here's what she says she does. She says she gets off the plane, she walks across the parking lot to the OXXO, to the OXXO, that's Mexico's version of the 7-Eleven. And anyway, right there's an OXXO in the parking lot. And she walks over there with her family or whoever she's with, whoever she's vacationing with at the time. And she buys a 6-pack of cervezas. And then they sit there and they drink it up. They have a couple of little tables out there outside of the OXXO. So they sit there and they drink the beer, and then they grab their stuff, and then they walk up that ramp, and they go down, and then they get their taxi, and off they go. Okay, I get it. It's not that you're cheap. It's just what you do, right? It's a tradition. Right, Debbie? Okay, enough. I'll stop bagging on you right now. Anyway, I'll get a picture of some of those places that I'm talking about the bridge, so you can see what I'm talking about. But we'll talk about that in another episode, okay? Anyway, back to Uber and back to your safety. Do not summon your Uber ride where taxis and taxi drivers hang out. Just don't do it. They have phones. They have cell phones. They take pictures of the Uber drivers. They take pictures of the Uber drivers' license plates. They follow these guys around. It's not nice, okay? So, don't summon one at the airport. Don't summon one in front of a hotel or a resort. Don't summon one in front of a restaurant or a bar. When I say summon one, don't say, hey, pick me up in front of, whatever restaurant. Don't do that. You need to go down the street somewhere. You need to find a place where there aren't taxi drivers that are going to, pick off this guy. Definitely don't stand near a taxi stand, right? Now, on the Malecon, at the end of, there's a lot of streets that dead end into the Malecon. And when that happens, there are usually taxi drivers that are there. They sit there and they wait to take people from the Malecon to wherever they're going. So that's a bad, bad place to be standing around and waiting for an Uber ride. Not only that, but they can block them in on those little streets. So don't do that at the end of the Malecon dead-end streets, okay? Don't stare at your cell phone while you're waiting for a ride. Okay, JR laughed at me when I told him that. He said, I heard you say that, Barry, and that sounded so stupid. Okay, it sounds stupid. I understand. And we all stand around and stare at our phones, right? It could be everybody. But I think these taxistas, they know if you're looking at your phone waiting for your Uber as it approaches. I don't know. They might have a sixth sense. I don't know. They definitely have a sixth sense right now. Anyway, when you get into your Uber car, when you finally find a place that looks safe to be able to summon your Uber driver, get in the front seat and acknowledge the driver as if they were your friend, right? Greet him with an hola, amigo, or ¿qué onda?, or ¿cómo estamos? That way, you don't look like an Uber pickup, but just like the guy's friend. Now, some of the locals are getting a little bit fed up with this taxi nastiness, and I've actually seen a couple of Facebook pages created that are pretty scary. They're looking at ways to get back at taxistas, and I'll keep an eye out for you guys. Look, just stay safe and follow my advice, and all will go well, amigos, really. And remember, taxis are cheap. Uber is cheaper, but remember, in Puerto Vallarta, taxis are cheap, okay? So don't be afraid to take one. And if you need to do the Uber experience, and when I go to Puerto Vallarta next time, I'll do the Uber experience for you guys too. But if you really need to do it, take my tips and do it that way. Don't get your driver into trouble, okay? All right. Now, there's so much news this week. There's been lots of heavy rains, and some of it has done some damage to our lovely Puerto Vallarta. There was a suspension footbridge, across the Rio Quale to the island, that the locals take a lot of these smaller footbridges, and they depend on to get from one side of the bridge to one side of the river to the other without having, go all the way down the street and what have you. But it looks like that there's one bridge gone, and they're going to have to rebuild that. There's just been lots of flooding. We had several days of 6-inch plus rains in one day, and it's not just all day that it rains, right? You get 6 inches in a matter of like 2 to 4 hours. It's crazy. And just, the streets turn into rivers. They really, really do. And so it is rainy season. We're catching up on rainfall, but it's all coming at once, which is a little bit scary. Also, I saw that Vallarta dodged a hurricane, but one landed in Cabo and did a lot of damage there. So anyway, another casualty is the road to San Sebastián de Oeste. And that road, we've talked about taking that road and taking that trip from Puerto Vallarta up to San Sebastián. Well, guess what? That road is washed out in several places, and you can't get through. And don't try to get through. And here's another thing: even if you did try to get through, you could actually almost make it. But once you get almost to San Sebastián, that's where the road's closed. I'm worried more about the people in San Sebastián. They are, they need supplies too. They got to get around, and the other roads that connect them to Guadalajara and to Puerto Vallarta or to the bay, I should say, are really. I mean, they're gravel, they're dirt roads. They're difficult to maneuver, especially in the rains. So if you're planning on going to San Sebastián, if you're going to fly, go for it. But if you're not going to fly in there, you're not going to get up there. Not at least this trip. I'll keep an eye on it, and I'll let you guys know when the roads are open. But until then, no bueno. Don't go. Okay, let's get to our guest. I have been following Pamela Fuller for a long time on the TripAdvisor forums. Pam is someone that I would consider a luxury traveler, and she's a TripAdvisor destination expert for many areas in Mexico. She is an expat from Massachusetts, and she lives in Lake Chapala, which is a beautiful lake situated in an extinct volcano, about an hour, I should say, out of Guadalajara. And as I said, she is a luxury traveler. She has lots of timeshares, and you're going to hear about some of them in our interview. Now, timeshare properties and resorts are pretty plentiful in Puerto Vallarta. My experiences with timeshare properties is pretty limited. I went to Villa del Palmar many, many, many years ago. I think it was back in 1992 with my wife and my first child, who was 6 months old, I think, at the time. And it was a nice property, and you can go online and you can book a room in one of these places. And the only drawback, I would say, is that you are constantly being approached to find out when you will be able to sit for, to hear a little bit about their timeshares, sit for their little program. And there's lots of them there. And the experience that we had at Villa del Palmar was, okay, we were young. We had just had a kid, and we were just way too young to even be thinking about that. We didn't even own a home. And we kind of told them that, and we told them we didn't even have a credit card. And they kind of left us alone. They only asked us once or twice. But, there's properties like, the Lindo Mar, Dreams, Casa Velas, Velas Vallarta, the now Amber, Friendly Vallarta, the Canto Del Sol, the Crown Paradise Resort, the Melia, the Garza Blanca, Vidanta, the Grand Mayan, the Grand Bliss, the Grand this, the Grand that. These are properties that have rooms, hotel rooms, like I was saying, but they're timeshare properties. And they, like I said, they spend a good amount of time trying to get you to agree to sit for a timeshare presentation. So that's what you're going to expect when you stay at one of these properties. And she'll talk a little bit about what to expect when you do go to one of these properties. They're beautiful, and it gives you a good opportunity to check out what a timeshare is about in Puerto Vallarta. A lot of these places have all-inclusive options, which means all you can drink and all you can eat. So talk a little bit about that too during our interview. Now, Pamela is also a breast cancer survivor. Her motto is survived to travel. And so she knows about medical care in Mexico and in Puerto Vallarta. So all of these things together, combined, I just had to get her on the show and share her experiences with you. So I sent my microphone to Boston, Massachusetts, and had a one-on-one conversation with my friend Pamela Fuller from Lake Chapala. Okay, so today I am joined by my buddy Pamela Fuller, and Pamela lives in Lake Chapala most of the year, right, Pam?
Yes, that's right.
All right, so tell us a little bit about yourself. What was your path to Puerto Vallarta?
Well, actually, my path to Puerto Vallarta started with Lake Chapala. My parents lived there, and we went down for a visit, bought some investment property, and then we returned home and got a call from my parents that they were thinking that it might be nice if we all lived in the same area. So they were thinking that we could build homes for each other. And we took 2 lots. They took 1. And my husband and I, never having done anything risky, 12 suitcases, 2 dogs, 2 kids. And within 2 months, we sold our home and we were in Mexico.
Wow. So where were you living before then?
We lived in Massachusetts, outside of Boston, in a suburb called Lowell, Mass.
Oh, Lowell, Massachusetts. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, fantastic. All right. So that was how long ago, Pamela?
That was 19 years ago, and that's when Berserk was born. And Berserk is from TripAdvisor.
Ah, okay. So let's talk a little bit about your relationship with TripAdvisor.
Okay, I'm a destination expert for a few areas like Chapala, Puerto Vallarta, NUEVO Vallarta. I really can't remember where else. I have 400 something thousand followers. I have 450 something reviews, and I travel between 12 and 16 weeks a year. My time with TripAdvisor, I don't know when I began with TripAdvisor, but I picked the name Berserk because we had made such a crazy decision to move to Mexico. And so I said Berserk would fit very appropriately. And what I do is I do volunteer work for TripAdvisor, writing reviews, traveling about, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And my motto is that I survive to travel. So thus I travel, fulfill my passion, share my experiences. And it's a hobby for me, but I take it seriously as though it's a job. I'm very serious about it, and I put a lot of effort into it. But I love it.
Yeah, I can tell you put a lot of effort into it. That's where I found you first. So I'm glad that we were able to talk a little bit about that. And like the area experts, that's a real job, isn't it?
It is. It really is. But again, like I said, I enjoy sharing my experiences with people, and I also enjoy hearing other people's experiences. So it's been good for me.
Excellent. Okay, so then let's talk about your journey from Lake Chapala then to Puerto Vallarta. When was the first time visiting Puerto Vallarta?
Well, I had actually visited Puerto Vallarta, I would say in the late 80s, maybe 89, 90, before I lived in Mexico. We moved to Mexico in 1998 with my parents and with my younger child, I believe. Then I also visited Puerto Vallarta with my mother and I on a girls' trip. I was pregnant with my last child. And then when we moved to Mexico in 1998, we spent some time not traveling as much because the kids were younger, whatever. So we did the few vacations a year, and they usually were to Puerto Vallarta or Mazatlan, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really how I got to Puerto Vallarta. And then once the kids got older, well, I was free to just do as I wished.
Yeah. Isn't that wonderful when that happens?
It certainly is.
Tell us a little bit about Lake Chapala, will you? I know this is about Puerto Vallarta, but tell us a little bit about Lake Chapala.
All right, a brief description of Lake Chapala. It's a tourist area. Most of the tourists are Americans, Canadians. There are some Europeans. Many of the tourists on weekends especially are Guadalajarians, or also known as Tapatíos. They come for the weekend. Most of them have summer homes in my area.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big retirement area because the prices are very reasonable. When we moved there, they were cheap. Now they're reasonable. The lake is 65 miles long. You can go all the way around the lake. I have never done that in one day, but you can actually do that. The best part about Lake Chapala is that we're a half an hour from an international airport. We're under an hour from all major medical facilities, malls, what have you, meaning in Guadalajara.
Mm-hmm.
We're at 5,000 feet, so we have a pretty temperate climate. And at one time, I hear that Lake Chapala was actually a volcano. So we're surrounded by lake and mountain. And when you actually drive into Lake Chapala area, coming over the mountains, to be honest with you, it looks like you're driving into Puerto Vallarta.
Oh, wow. Well,
Yeah,
that sounds lovely.
it's pretty nice.
I bet. So, talking about driving, what's the drive like from Lake Chapala to Puerto Vallarta?
Okay, the drive from Lake Chapala to Puerto Vallarta used to be about 8 to 9 hours long, and it was along coastal roads totally. Now we have toll roads. We do have some portion of it that is winding through the mountains and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
It takes about 5 hours from Guadalajara, so tack on another hour if you're going from Lake Chapala. I will tell you that the drivers in Mexico are pretty aggressive. They take a lot of chances that most people wouldn't take.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be really careful when you drive there, watching every which way. They will pass on a mountain curve, what have you.
Wow.
But on the toll roads, it's really a smooth ride, really quick. And now we have a new toll road that's due to open in 2018 that should cut the time frame down to about 3 hours. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, and everybody in Guadalajara is excited about that.
They certainly are.
All right. Well, when that happens, I think everybody in Puerto Vallarta is going to be pretty excited too.
Yeah, that's right, because then they can come to our area, into Guadalajara, which is an incredible city.
Yeah. I know that there are a lot of road closures actually right now. There's some muddy road closures and stuff like that, but we won't get into that in this particular talk.
That's a different route than I take. That's the Mascota and Mecca route, and I take a different route. Okay. I take the toll roads, so it's a little more pricey.
Yeah. When you say pricey, can you give us an idea what that runs to
drive there?
To drive there, yeah.
I want to say maybe, I'm guessing, because I don't have that in front of me, I'm guessing it's around 500 pesos. Of course, that's not counting gas or anything.
Mm-hmm. So like your total tolls along the way are about 500 pesos, which in U.S. is about $30 or so.
Yeah, that's pricey for us.
Yeah, okay. But when you think about the wear and tear on your car, I would say probably it's worth it, right?
Yeah, that's right. There are free roads you can take, but of course, then you're talking a much longer ride.
Yeah, that too. So,
yeah,
if you can afford it, go for it.
That's right.
So, what do you do with your car? Do you drive around there? Do you park it? What do you do?
It really depends on my mood and the type of vacation that I'm planning on. Some vacations are just total chilled. Some vacations are, go crazy, go all around. So yes, I do drive in Puerto Vallarta. Piece of cake compared to driving in Guadalajara or what have you. Huh. The only problem can be parking, in that, you do have to, I don't park on the street. I tend to find a parking garage or what have you. Mm-hmm. For me, in reality, I think it's easier to just drive there, park your car, and use a taxi. And I know that your next question is going to be, do I use Uber?
Yeah, do you? Do you use Uber?
And honestly, I have never used Uber yet in any country, but it's on my list.
Okay, good, because it's on my list too. When I get to Puerto Vallarta, I'm going to try an Uber and see what happens there. So
yeah, it should be interesting.
One of the reasons I brought you on is because I've heard you talk about your different timeshares and stuff like that. So tell us about your timeshares. Where are they? How do you make them work for you?
Okay, my timeshare story is actually kind of long. I'll make it into a short story. We ended up with our first timeshare. We bought it in New Hampshire because I had left vacation planning to my husband when we were living in the States. Mm-hmm. And he's a workaholic. He's also not a planner. And we both had employers at the time, and vacation time came up and he had no vacation planned. So we went away, I don't know, maybe a few months before the summer vacation, and ended up staying at a place and went to a timeshare presentation. My husband made a deal with the guy if he could get us the week that we needed, which was the summer week, school vacation week. And if he could get us that, he would purchase the timeshare. Mm-hmm. They said that it would be impossible. Well, my husband said, either you can and I'll buy, or you don't and I don't buy. Well, of course, they came up with it and we bought our first timeshare. From there, we took quite a break. And then once we got into Mexico, numerous places that we've traveled throughout Mexico, we have purchased, let me put it this way, too many timeshares. But it's okay because we have the freedom and flexibility where my husband is self-employed and owns his own company. We have the flexibility to travel a lot. So timeshares are good if you can use them. And we do use ours. We go on vacation 10 to 16 weeks a year. Yeah. So they work really good for us. I probably would have a really hard time staying in a hotel now because the big part of timeshares is you get a much better room than a hotel room. Mm-hmm. And I'm all about space. I need a lot of space.
So you are one of our luxury travelers. You like you like to have the nice accommodations. You like maybe to be pampered a little bit. You like that kind of treatment.
Yes, I could be pampered a lot.
That's good. Yeah, you sound like my wife. Yes.
I don't have to be pampered a lot, but it's certainly is a nice thing to get to a point in your life where you like to be pampered. I've done the camping and the whole budget traveling and whatever, and I'm at a point in my life now where, yeah, I like to be pampered. I do like to try different places, so I do exchange timeshares frequently to try different places. I've stayed at a good percentage of places in Puerto Vallarta, and I have my likes and dislikes.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that. Where have you stayed in Puerto Vallarta?
Oh my goodness!
I know. It's going to be a long list, isn't it?
Yes, all right. Well, somewhere that's not a timeshare. Let me do that one first. I've stayed at Casa Isabel, which was lovely.
Yeah, how did you like that?
I loved it. Incredible views. The room was wonderful. Of course, we met Isabel herself, and she's just the most stunning woman and such a personality.
I want to interview her.
We really, she's just so exciting. A really vibrant, exciting person with lots and lots of stories to share. And she runs a really beautiful, I guess it would be called a hotel.
Yeah.
With some incredible views. So we really enjoyed our time there.
So the property itself, the rooms, real nice. Can you describe those?
It's stunning. It's just stunning. Everything about it is stunning.
Wonderful.
You couldn't have a complaint there. It's just beautiful.
Okay.
Not a timeshare, but a hotel. But nice size rooms, beautiful bathrooms, and she's very accommodating, as I said. And of course, there's a restaurant there too, so you have everything you need there. Let's see where else I have stayed. Well, I've stayed obviously at the Velas resorts, all of them, except for Cabo, and that's because they happen to be my favorite resort chain. And the funny thing is, and if they hear this, they're probably not going to be too thrilled that I said this, but when the first time we went to the Velas Vallarta, we really didn't like it. We liked the resort and everything, but it was really high pressure for the sales. So we were kind of like, we were leery, and so we weren't thrilled with it. And in future trips, we went back because we liked the room and the resort, and we did end up buying into the Velas chain, and now it happens to be our favorite. Reason being, they have the best food, they have the best amenities, and the service is like 5-star, 6-star. I've stayed at Villa del Palma. I've stayed at Crown Paradise. I've stayed at Costa del Sur, whatever it's called. I recently stayed at Garza Blanca. I've stayed out in Nuevo Vallarta at the Vidanta properties, which I actually own there as well. Paradise Village, Occidental Grand, Regina, Club Regina, I think it's called. The list would go on, Barry.
It sounds like it, yeah.
Secrets, Now, Dreams.
So tell us. Well, okay, you've already said that Velas is your favorite. Now they have just one property in Puerto Vallarta?
Oh no, they have in Puerto Vallarta. They have Velas Vallarta, which is a family-oriented resort, and then they have Casa Velas, which is a boutique. They call it a hotel, but it's a little bit more than a hotel. It has quaint charm, kind of like a Mexican feel, a modern Mexican feel. It's a luxury property. I think there's 80 rooms, something like that. One restaurant, but you have privileges to go over to Velas Vallarta. So if you own at Velas Vallarta, you can use any of their resorts. But they have the two, Velas Vallarta and Casa Velas in Puerto Vallarta. Casa Velas is adults only, so of course I like that. But frequently my kids like to come with us and maybe bring my grandson. So then Velas Vallarta is a secondary option for us.
Now those are located where in town?
In the Marina area.
Both of them?
Yes, both of them. The other resort on the West Coast that they own is in Nuevo Vallarta, and that would be Grand Bliss.
Okay. And when you say they've got great food, it's all inclusive?
Well, I believe now if you become a timeshare member and or go through an exchange company, I think it's mandatory all-inclusive. My contract is optional all-inclusive.
Okay. Which means that we
can choose to do it or not do it.
Right.
We almost always choose to do it because I'll be honest with you, it's not buffet, it's sit-down meals, and they don't nickel and dime you at all. No matter what you want or how many of it you want, you can have it. And it's all very, very good quality food, drinks, etc. Top notch.
Okay, so because, we all go to Puerto Vallarta because we like to eat, so you're not missing anything, is what you're saying. When you go there and you eat there, you're not eating in town, it's okay because you're getting some great food.
Right. And we might go out, even if we do the all-inclusive, we might go out a few nights because we have a few favorite restaurants in Puerto Vallarta or what have you. So we may go out or we may go out to hook up with some friends or something. But on the whole, we're not missing anything by eating at the resorts. I have stayed at all-inclusive resorts that certainly the food is no comparison, and definitely going out would be a better option.
Okay, cool. All right, so you mentioned Garza Blanca. That was the latest place that you stayed. What did you think? What did you think of the property?
The property is beautiful. It's very beautiful. It's on two sides of Route 200, so that's not that appealing because you have to cross that major road. But they do take you on a trolley, kind of like they would have in San Francisco, to bring you over to the other side. But the property is really beautiful. The rooms are just incredible. I mean, that blew me away with the rooms. The only problem was the food was very inconsistent and the service was, hate to say this, but poor.
No.
Yes, very, very poor. I don't want to bash anybody, but really poor.
Now, was that because maybe it was off season?
I really don't think so. They did have a lot of people there, and it might be off season for people out of country, but it's in season for nationals.
Yeah.
So,
There's no excuse.
and it's not an excuse. And there were a lot of complaints from nationals as well on the service, like waiting 3 hours for room service.
Yikes.
I happened to take a fall off the shuttle because the man didn't put the little wooden stairs, and it's kind of a step down. And so I took a fall and nobody followed through on that. And even with my review mentioning it and me going to somebody, nobody has even as yet contacted me. So either way, it's a beautiful resort. The food is so inconsistent, like I said, and the services, they're biggie. And I think it comes from a management standpoint. I think the people that are waiting on you are really trying. They just don't have the backup on from management.
So Blanca Blue, is that the fancy restaurant that they have there?
Okay, Blanca Blue is on the beach. It has a nice panoramic view, but it's right on the beach. And then they have a Japanese restaurant, Hiroshi, which is up on the mountain. So you're way up, and that has quite the view. Their spa and their gym also have like 360-degree view of mountain, beach, etc.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, some incredible views. And like I said, the rooms have great views, whatever. Very small beach, really nice resort. If it's, I guess I would say if you haven't traveled around a lot, you would think it's like a 5-star.
Yeah. But you know better.
Yeah, I hate to say that.
That's all right. That's why I have you here. You're supposed to be telling us the truth. You know, everybody.
I am, but I'm feeling bad about it.
Oh, all right. Well, it's okay. Well, we can say nice things about it, like it's pretty and it had nice rooms.
Incredible
and they have lots of room for improvement.
That's right.
Okay, there you go.
Yep.
Okay. We already talked about the best food at these all-inclusive properties, and that would be at Velas.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about, are there any other properties in or around Puerto Vallarta that you could tell us about that, well, maybe unusual, that maybe something that people wouldn't stumble upon?
I don't know if it would be unusual or they wouldn't stumble upon it, but a resort that I like, and I don't do all-inclusive at it, is Villa del Palma. They did quite a remodel on it, and it's very unique in that they have used very Mexican bright colors in all the decor. Some people wouldn't like it. A lot of pink, teal, yellow, orange, really kind of funky. But nice rooms, they're spacious, nice resort, nice pools, nice service, nice attention from management, what have you. Again, I don't do all-inclusive there, so I can't rate their food. And it's in the hotel district. So it has a nice beach. You know, it's not the Caribbean, but it has a nice beach, and I enjoy returning there. And then they have the new food truck eatery that's across the street right in front of it. So if you're looking for a snack at night or some entertainment, you can just hop right over there and walk.
Cool. So tell me about that food truck thing. How many food trucks gather around there at night?
Oh goodness, I think they're permanent. It's got to be a good, I want to say between 10 and 20 trucks there with a variety of different things. Some serve alcohol.
And would you say that the prices, would you say the prices are Puerto Vallarta prices? Are they a little bit higher because they're serving, I'm guessing probably mostly people that are in the hotel zone, right? Mostly tourists from the hotels?
Yeah, I thought the prices were pretty reasonable. I mean, they weren't like you would get, say, if you go on the south side into a mom and pop place, but pretty reasonable, good food. What I had there was very good. You know, you're looking $10 or so.
Okay.
For a meal.
All right, cool. Now, again, the name of that is Villa Palmar?
Del Parma.
Del Parma?
Palmar.
Palmar, right.
Palmar, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, well, I'll we'll link those up in our show notes so that you guys can take a look at that and see what that all looks like. That sounds like a really cool property. Any others that you can think of?
Properties that I really liked. There's a few out in Nuevo Vallarta, but that's not Puerto Vallarta.
Well, that's okay. You can tell us a little bit about Nuevo.
Well, a lot of people don't like the Mayan resorts or Vidante, only because they hear the high pressure time sales or whatever.
Yeah.
But I have to say, it's an incredible, incredible property. It's going to be or is a city in and of itself. There is everything on that property that you can imagine. So it's probably best for somebody who has been to Puerto Vallarta and just likes the weather, wants to come back, but wants to kind of just chill and have a nice vacation. Again, they have beautiful rooms. I don't know how many pools. They must have over 30 pools.
Wow.
They have probably over 30 restaurants. They have a water slide. They have a wave pool. They have a lazy river. They shuttle you around the resort. It's so big that you can't walk everywhere.
Wow.
That's a really nice property.
What resort was that? That's the Maya resort?
They used to be called Mayan. Now they're called Vidante.
Vidante. Ah,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, that's when you walk in the airport. There's all the signs saying Vidante. Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
Very
right.
high pressure sales.
Okay. So if you can get away from having to deal with the high pressure salesman, you could really enjoy yourself there. Is that what you're trying to say?
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So when they ask, you say no, 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 no,
No,
no,
no, no.
no, 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 no.
Yeah. Just be firm. Say no.
Cool. All right. Let's move on. Let's talk about restaurants because I know you've been to so many of them. Could we talk a little bit about maybe what your favorite restaurants are in Puerto Vallarta? Let's maybe talk about breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So maybe we can start with breakfast for you.
Okay. That's a tough one because I'm a night owl, as you know. Most people know. So breakfast is not really something that I see very often.
I know that's
um,
not fair, and I get a lot of guests that say the same thing. Well, we don't do breakfast that often.
yeah, I step really late, even on vacation. So I don't really go out to too many breakfast places. I have been to the Sheridan Breakfast Buffet, and that's quite good. But otherwise, I really can't make comments on breakfast places because if I've had it, it's just been like a quickie that my husband and I went for breakfast because he's a breakfast person, but I'm not. So
Okay,
he may go out himself.
that's fair enough. All right. So how about lunch?
Lunch is a small meal for me usually. So we'd maybe hit a mom and pop place or whatever. It doesn't really matter. I'll tell you where my favorite places are. My favorite places are Bravo's,
Ah,
a little more fancy type restaurant, excellent desserts. The owner is so cordial.
no, that's Michael
So I
Buford
really
there.
like Bravo's.
Yeah.
Another place I really like is Anejo Limon.
Ah,
I am friends with Bruce, and I've made friends with Bruce, I guess, or acquaintances. But I think he does a great job with prime rib, shrimp, numerous meals, hamburgers, what have you, which is on the south side, I guess you would call it.
hmm.
You can sit in the front, but most people don't. Most people sit in the back, which is kind of like a garden setting. It's nothing pretentious or he serves I would say, an international type menu. Good drinks, good service, good attention, good food. Can't beat it.
Oh, good. I got to try it.
You've never been?
I've never been.
Oh, it's really good. You really do need to try it.
All right.
And you could probably do a great interview with Bruce.
Yeah, I'd like to. I'd like to talk with him for sure.
Sonora Prime, I really like because of the quality of their meat. And I find I have a really hard time getting really good cuts of meat in Mexico.
Mm.
We used to travel from Lake Chapala all the way to Puerto Vallarta and spend a week just so I could have prime rib at Outback. So that tells you the quality of meat in Mexico can sometimes not be so great. A place that I found not that long ago that I really enjoyed was Layla's. and I'm sure you've heard of it.
Yeah.
It's I think you can eat on the first floor or the second floor. We ate on the second floor. I had a great meal there, reasonable prices, great service. I mean, I really liked it. I would go back numerous times. The food park I really liked. Blake's Sports Bar in the hotel zone is a really nice place to eat.
All right, cool. So those are any other dinners that you like? Any dinner places?
I can't think of names off the top of my head. I mean, all the Palapa, all the ones up on the mountains, with the beautiful
Yeah.
views. Of course, everybody wants to go to those, and of course, you're paying for the view, so not they're not necessarily always the best food, in my opinion, but you're paying for that spectacular view. I don't necessarily go for the view because we have some wonderful views where I live. I have a mirador and I have a view of the lake and what have you. So, and I go to the beach so often that the view isn't my main priority.
Okay. What kind of advice would you give to a first-time visitor to Puerto Vallarta?
The biggest thing I would tell a first-time visitor to Puerto Vallarta, and my husband and I discuss this a lot because I travel even more than him, of course, would be you have to visit the Malecon in the daytime and also in the nighttime, at least once. You really can't say you went to Puerto Vallarta without going to the Malecon, taking in the ambiance, the people, the artists along there, the sculptures, the meaning of the sculptures, taking pictures with the sculptures, the rock sculptures, the activity, the shopping, the concerts that they do there, I'm going to say this word wrong, papantle flyers,
Oh yeah.
papantla flyers, what have you.
Right.
They don't have those all the time, but that's something to see. So in my opinion, if you're going to go to Puerto Vallarta and you miss the Malecon, you didn't go to Puerto Vallarta because that's their life. It's on the beach and everything is there. And on a Sunday night to catch that vibe is incredible. If you're young, I think you should go to the Malecon on a Sunday night and then go out clubbing. Because they stay open till 6 o'clock in the morning or what have you. And having raised kids in Mexico, they've told me quite some exciting stories about clubbing in Mexico. So I think it's something a young person should do, and no matter what age you are, don't miss the Malecon.
Definitely not. And you're right. In any age, there's something for everybody there, including the very, very, very young.
That's right. Yep.
All right. As far as places to see other than the Malecon, are there any other suggestions that you would have for visitors?
Okay, a lot of people are doing the climb up to the cross. So if you're a hiker, I think that's a great thing to do. The botanical gardens, I've been a few times. It doesn't bowl me over with excitement, but I live in Mexico, so that makes a huge difference. I think for a visitor, the botanical gardens is something you should go to and enjoy and have lunch there. I have had lunch there. It's very good.
Yeah.
The zoo, if you're not a zoo hater, I'm not either way. So I think the zoo is so unique because it's interactive and what have you, that's something you shouldn't miss because you won't see that many places in the world. My children and my grandson have gone there, and every time they come to Puerto Vallarta, they want to go back. The Malecon, the zoo, the botanical gardens. Of course, you should probably, if you're okay with boats, I'm not, but if you're okay with boats, go to Yelapa. These are all things I did in my past life before I got ill and am unable to go on boats. But Yelapa is something to see. Definitely see the Pie Lady.
Yeah.
Let me think what else. Miss Maloya is quite interesting, different style beach, nice beaches. I don't know, there were so many things to see and do that. I could still go every time, and every time I go, see something new or experience something new. So one thing at a time, I guess. Don't over another suggestion for some visitors is don't overbook yourself, because you'll miss things and you won't enjoy the people, the culture, the whole ambience of Puerto Vallarta. Don't schedule so many activities that you miss out. Rhythms of the Night is very nice. Swimming with the dolphins, the sea lions, all of that is great, but don't do too many things that you can't just do the free things.
Yeah, and to slow down and
slow
relax
down.
and kind of get into the vibe, because that is
right.
That's a Mexican vibe, you know.
That's right. That's Mexico.
Cool. Now, you were saying that you had some health issues. What are the medical facilities like in Puerto Vallarta?
The medical facilities for a traveler or an expat that lives in Puerto Vallarta and maybe has private insurance or something are wonderful. I'll give you an example. I myself have private health insurance, so I've spent a lot of time in hospitals and what have you, facilities in Guadalajara, as well as in Puerto Vallarta. I've stayed at San Javier, and it's a beautiful hospital. The rooms, you have a private room, you have, your own nurses. All of the doctors are usually bilingual if you're in a hospital. Maybe not if you're just going for like a pharmacy doctor or a small office doctor. But if you're going in the hospital, they're all bilingual. The care is top notch. I've had some serious health issues, and all of my care, I am a registered nurse, so I'm pretty meticulous on what occurs health-wise.
You know what good treatment is too.
That's right. And everything, when I initially got sick, I'm a breast cancer survivor. So when I initially got ill, we relayed everything back to doctors at Mass General, and they were like, you're getting the best care possible. Don't even bother coming back here. Get everything there.
Wow.
You're getting the best care that you would probably get, maybe even better than what we can give you, because they're more caring in Mexico, and they're not in such a rush. They don't have, like, say for a nurse, she doesn't have 20 patients. She maybe has 5. The doctor, all of the doctors, I call them personally I have their cell phone numbers. I have a whole team. I have their cell phone numbers. I have the home numbers. I can reach them at any hour of the day or night. I fell and broke my hip. From the floor, called my cancer doctor and told him I was on the floor and had a broken hip. And he said, okay, fine, I'll have the orthopedist meet you at the hospital and I'll be there too.
Wow.
When I was in Puerto Vallarta and got quite ill, I went into San Javier, and they admitted me right away, English speaking. I had numerous tests, whatever. I think I was in the hospital for about a week, and the care was excellent. So I would never be afraid of getting care in Mexico for any travel. You do have to usually pay up front. Again, they're travelers, and I live here, so different scenario. So they should travel with a credit card that has a high credit limit, or make sure they have some kind of insurance that will pay directly to the hospital. And that's where, like, Pam Thompson from Health Resources, she's a good one to check with before you go on your vacation. I've had some minor things, needing an injection or whatever, that I don't want to give myself when I've been on vacation. And I've always contacted her and asked her where I can go, where she thinks I should go that would be able to squeeze me in or whatever. And she always gives me great information. So she's a big help.
Yeah, she's great. And we have an episode with Pam Thompson. And so we did talk about traveler's insurance and how, a lot of people go on vacation and don't even think about getting traveler's insurance. Right. And then, of course, they go crazy when they find out that they got to pay in advance, when something happens. I think everybody should take note, before you go to Mexico, get yourself some good traveler's insurance.
That's right. Absolutely.
And make sure you do have a card that's got a good sized credit limit on it, just in case.
Yeah, just in case. I mean, it's cheaper in Mexico, but if you have a major issue, I don't know, you have a heart attack or you fall and break your hip or something like that, you're talking some hefty money. So you need a decent credit limit.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Wow. Well, I think, Pamela, that we have, I think we've discussed just about everything that I had thought about. Do you have something you want to add?
Not really. I feel very honored to be on your show.
Oh, well, thank you for that. I'm honored to have you on my show. I got to tell you, I've been chasing you around for a long time to get you to come onto my program. So it was really good for you to do that. And you guys, I was able to mail her a microphone to Boston, because otherwise it's really hard to get together with you in Puerto Vallarta. You're in, you're out, and we for some reason we can't get together. So I want to thank you so much for finding the time to talk with me from Massachusetts, and then I guess you're headed back to Lake Chapala in a few days.
I'm headed back to Lake Chapala on Friday morning. Yes, so tomorrow is a big goodbye day, and actually I've had my fill of the United States. I'm ready to head back to Mexico and be a little more tranquil, slow down a little.
Get back to mañana time.
That's right.
Wow. Well, Pamela, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show, and maybe sometime soon we'll get together for a drink in Puerto Vallarta.
I'd love that, Barry. That would be so great.
Thanks for coming.
Okay. Have a great night.
Well, thank you, Pamela. Thank you so much for sharing with me and with all of us. You are an inspiration to fellow travelers and adventurers. And you're such a fount of information and knowledge of the Jalisco area and of Puerto Vallarta. So thank you again. Well, that should do it for this episode of the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show. Next week, stay tuned for more on-the-ground reports from Puerto Vallarta, with travel tips, great restaurant and excursion ideas, and more. But until then, remember that this is an interactive show where I depend on your questions and suggestions about all things Puerto Vallarta, like from you, Cheryl, and from you, Reggie, and from you, Sam, who I can't even, get a response to because you've got that ca.gov address. Fix that for me, would you? But if you think of something that I should be talking about, reach out to me. Click on the Contact Us tab and send me your message. And remember, if you're considering booking any type of tour while you're in Puerto Vallarta, you must go to vallartainfo.com, that's JR's website, and reserve your tour through him right from his website. Remember, this is a value-for-value proposition, my friends. His experience and his on-the-ground knowledge of everything Puerto Vallarta in exchange for your making a purchase of a tour that you'd do anyway. You're just doing it through him as a way of saying thank you. Thanks, JR, for being our guide. It costs no more than if you were to use someone else, so just do it, really. And when you do take one of those tours, email me about your experiences. Maybe you can come on board and share with others what you liked or didn't like about the tour. Again, contact me by clicking on the Contact Us tab and sending off a message. And once again, if you like this podcast, please take the time and subscribe and give me a good review on iTunes if you would. That way we can get the word out to more and more people about the magic of this place, Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. And remember, I made it easy for you guys to do just that with each episode I create. But if you haven't been to my website, you really need to have a look at it. I have links to all the places that we talk about. I have interesting pictures and more right there in my blog posts and in my show notes for each and every episode of the show. So check them out for sure if you haven't already, okay? All right. And thanks to you, Pamela Fuller, TripAdvisor destination expert, luxury traveler, breast cancer survivor who survives to travel. I have pictures of her and her husband and all the places that we talked about in the show notes of this show at www.puertovallartatravelshow.com. And thanks to all of you for listening all the way through this episode of the Puerto Vallarta Travel Show. This is Barry Kessler signing off with a wish for all of you to slow down, be kind, and live the Vallarta lifestyle. Nos vemos, amigos.
Samba de Puerto Vallarta, noche de arrullo en el mar. Samba de Puerto Vallarta, noche de amor junto al mar. Solo camino eterno por la playa, me encuentro junto al río cuando todo está en calma. Pronto cae la noche, me brillas Puerto Vallarta. Samba de Puerto Vallarta, noche de arrullo en el mar. Samba de Puerto Vallarta.